it's great to pin everything on one thing and one competition, one race, and throw everything at it and try to do your best and get a personal best or to win or to whatever. But actually the beauty of the journey and falling in love with the process is more important sometimes. But I'm absolutely loving the process, and for me that's the most important thing at the moment. If I'm loving what I'm doing, then I'm going to keep doing it.
Rob Sears, welcome to the See-Through podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Lance.
Yeah, man. You're over in the UK, right?
Yes, and it's freezing cold.
It's in New York here, and it's been very cold, but I think the sun is staying out longer. I think spring's coming, and that's good news for us RP folk,
Absolutely, yeah, 100%. Although, actually, I quite like the grey mornings where it's not sunny, but it's not overcast, kind of in between. I really like that. That's a good light for me.
It's like soft lighting, so it's easier on the eyes.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, basically what I just said is you have RP. That's kind of assumed with what we just talked about with weather. Outside of that, I want to give you a chance to introduce yourself, like to the people listening.
Okay, so my name is Rob. I live in Norwich in the UK, and I have been on YouTube for just over a year. That's how I started to interact with Lance and the See-Through podcast, which I really enjoy. I have RP, and I've been classified as severely sight impaired or blind for over a year now. And in truth, I only really went to hospital to get classified so that I could compete in ParaTriathlon. I'd probably been struggling with my eyesight for 3 or 4 years at a point where I knew it was bad, but I didn't need to go to hospital for someone to tell me that it was bad. But it was only when they said, you need this classified properly if you're going to pursue some sport, I thought, well, I better go on with it. So officially I've been blind for just over a year as well. But yeah, I've had RP from day one. So
day one, right out the gate. Well, I guess all of us have technically because it's inherited, right? So it's just like some of us know we have it because of like our parents or people we inherited from, and then some of us find out later. You seem to have known from the beginning, right? So that must mean you have family members with RP.
Yeah, so it's strange. So my grandfather he lost his sight when he was in his late 50s, early 60s. And at that point, certainly in the UK, it was just down to old age. So nothing was really looked into. It was, well, he's an older man, so that's probably what it's to do with. And then my mum became aware of the RP gene, and they'd actually been to Moorfields Eye Hospital in London and had some testing done and some bits and pieces done. But we're talking, I'm 43, so longer than that, 50 years ago. Obviously, the knowledge and research is much different to what it is now. So they had a bit of a primitive idea about what X-linked RP looked like. And as far as they understood, my mum was a carrier of the gene that she got from my granddad, and then she passed it to me. And that was kind of what we assumed, and things didn't really change in terms of knowledge of that for a long time. But obviously recent times research is showing that the genetic stuff is a lot more complicated than perhaps we first thought it was. And so I knew from a really early age. My parents knew from really early on. And actually I was in Ibiza on a family holiday, so one of the Spanish islands. And I was chasing my sister along promenade in the sort of dusky nighttime, as you do as kids. So we were chasing after each other, and my parents at that point hadn't really worked out the best way to tell me, the best time to tell me. And anyway, I missed 3 steps on the promenade chasing my sister, and I ran off the promenade. And that was the point where they were sort of like, we should probably tell him that there's something wrong with his eyes, because up to that point, you're a kid, so you don't really know any different. You just assume that's what everyone sees. And so from that point, they sort of told me, and yeah, that's when I started to sort of notice these things going on.
Yeah, that has to be a tough decision for parents. When do you make that announcement? Because you're trying to factor in like, when are they mature enough to understand it? And then also, when is the timing perfect so it won't be like this huge rain cloud over their head and maybe make them feel hopeless about the future. And you have to kind of share it in a way that's like hopeful, so it's not an easy position for a parent to be in, and it's definitely not an easy position for a child to be in either. So it's like kind of a lose-lose situation. It's really, how do you make the best out of it?
Yeah.
And, but I was going to ask, cause you train, you do a lot of athletic, events, and you're training, you've done triathlons, which is incredibly impressive. How did that RP diagnosis, did it fire you up to train harder at all? Like, was there any sort of like spark that came from it, or was it like I'll show them kind of mentality? Like, that has to be helpful to a certain degree, because to do a triathlon, you kind of have to have something in you that's like, let's do this thing, because like, you can't just be passive and be like, I'm going to do a triathlon,
No, so I guess, I mean, for me, I was lucky when I was growing up that it didn't really affect me massively in terms of sport. I just wasn't very good at sports that involved balls. So football, hockey, tennis, all of that stuff, badminton, anything that involved hitting something, kicking something, throwing something, I wasn't very good at, because I didn't have the hand-eye coordination. Obviously, you try and encourage a child with problems with their sight to do everything. But in hindsight, I was made to feel pretty awful at every sport I did at school, just because I couldn't really see very well.
Okay.
And that wasn't really picked up. So what I actually ended up with at school was, and we laugh about it now, me and my parents, but they came to one of my parents' evenings when I went to high school, and my PE teacher, physical education teacher, said to my parents, Rob tries hard, but he'll never do anything in sport. He'll never, it's just not in him. Some kids have got it and some haven't. He's just not, sport isn't his thing. And that really it upset me, because I love sport. But also, I think because we didn't really understand what impact my RP was having on me as a kid, you just assume, well, I'm not very good at sport. But I really excelled at swimming and running at the time. So my dad was always a runner, so I kind of followed in his footsteps and got into running. And then university came, and I just got into lots of different sports there. And it probably wasn't until I started getting into my 30s that I was aware that my eyesight was getting worse, but it wasn't at the point where I needed to be thinking about stopping. So when I was going to the opticians and when I was going to hospital before them, people were always saying, with your eyesight, you probably shouldn't be doing these kind of things because it's quite dangerous. And at that point, I was very much a case of, well, I'll be good. I'll be fine. I'll keep going. And I knew I was going to keep going as long as I could, knowing that there was going to come a point where I wouldn't be able to do sport in the way that I wanted to do it anymore. And that for me came in 2017. So what's that, 8 years ago? That was the last triathlon I did off, by myself on a solo. So swimming.
And what is a triathlon for those who don't know?
So it's swimming, biking and running. Obviously not being able to see very well in a swim is quite precarious at times. You just end up following the feet of the people in front of you and hoping for the best. Riding a bike is normally okay, but you have to be so aware of everything going on around you. So my hearing is good. You can sense stuff. You can kind of keep yourself out of trouble, but unfortunately, you need to be able to react quickly. So again, having sight loss on a bike probably isn't the best thing. And obviously running without a guide, with bad sight loss, it can lead to all kinds of problems. And I'd sort of sort of thought, well, I'm okay for now. I haven't hurt myself. I'll be okay. And I knew the day was coming when that wouldn't be possible. And like I say, 2017 was when it happened for me. Just had a really bad race. A lot of bad things happened. And I was just like, it's not worth the risk anymore. So,
and how far do you bike? How far do you swim? And how far do you run?
So the distances vary according to the event. So you can do super sprint, where the swim is only 250 or 400 meters. The bike is 10 kilometers, so just over 6 miles. And then the run is normally anything up to 2.5K. Or you can go all the way the other end of the scale of like Ironman, which is long distance triathlon, which is a 3.8 kilometer swim, 180K on the bike, and a marathon to finish on the run. So there really is like this huge scale of really tiny to massively long. So I've done them all, but at the moment I'm very much focusing on the shorter stuff at the moment.
Oh, really? You did the long form one?
Yeah,
that's awesome.
It's very cool. I've not done it as a para athlete, so I haven't done it on the tandem yet. So I'm very much in the sort of sprint zone, so in the short stuff at the moment. But that would definitely be something I'd like to look at in the next couple of years.
For sure. Yeah, because I think, assessing the risk is twofold, because you're assessing the risk on yourself. And with that, it's kind of like, yeah, I'll be all right because I'm only worried about myself. And but where it gets complicated, and I think this is the case with driving, right? Is like other people's risk too, because you might, in a bike, you might hit them or trip over somebody running. And that probably is the main thing that would probably prevent you from doing more, right? Is other people?
Yeah. So I think certainly when you're younger, you don't really care about that. You sort of thinking, well, I need to do this for myself, and you're only really thinking about yourself. But I think as you get older, you start thinking about the risks that other people. So for example, you're absolutely right with competitions. It's like, well, if I can't see, that puts me at risk, but it also puts someone else at risk, and that's pretty selfish, and I don't need that pressure. And then thinking about driving and all of that stuff, we're thinking of ourselves at the expense of potentially someone else, and that risk for me just isn't worth the reward.
Yeah, it kind of ties into like why even when you don't necessarily need to use it in every second of every day of your life, but the white cane sometimes is more for others than it is for yourself. RP is weird like that, where it makes you you're kind of forced to be more considerate to others. And I feel like people with RP they're typically like hyper aware of how they're being perceived by others, or if they're in the way of others, or I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not, but it seems to be the case with people with eye conditions or blindness, is that they're thinking more about how, if they're an inconvenience to others, or if they're in the way of others, or are they a danger to others? Yeah,
for sure. And also there's also a responsibility to keep yourself and other people safe. So for example, it's the white cane is a prime example, isn't it? And like we said before, it's always brought up in any conversation with anyone that has any kind of eye problem. Sorry, can you hear my dogs in the background?
A little bit, it's fine. Speaking of dogs, I'm wearing a shirt that has my dog on it. I'm gonna show the camera. I'm showing the camera right now.
Amazing.
My dog Ruby. I got this shirt for Christmas. Shout out to my dog Ruby, and shout out to Amber for giving me this shirt.
Nice. Nice. That is
but yeah, my dog's asleep. Behind this bed behind me.
Nice.
And I'm just kind of fingers crossed, hoping that she doesn't make sounds.
Yeah.
Either.
See, I was fingers crossed, and then it all kicked off downstairs, and I was like, no, my fingers crossed didn't work. So yeah.
It's fine, dude.
So yeah, I think with the white cane, it's very difficult because, like you say, it's one of those things that we might not want to use it for ourselves all the time. But if we walk out into the road and someone hits us, and they don't know that we're blind, we can't see, they will assume that, you know, that's okay, they'll move out of the way, they'll be fine. Same with pedestrians, same with cyclists, same with, you know, anyone. If they don't see a cane, they're just going to assume that you can see, and, you know, why wouldn't you move out of the way? Why would you? You know, why would you cause them problems?
Yeah, for sure. You made an interesting point that I think doesn't get talked about enough, is how your maturity level kind of impacts your perception of how you react to your eye disease. For example, like you said, when you're younger, you didn't really factor that in, but as you kind of matured and kind of became an adult, then you're like, oh, I should probably not put myself in danger, but as I should also, now you're having that additional thought of, I shouldn't put others in danger. Like, and I think that's one thing that you talk about on your channel too, is kind of like, there's the past and the present and the future of, you know, dealing with, you know, RP or an eye condition. If it's degenerative, you know, like our eye conditions are. And that's kind of a good example of that. Like the past is like young and youthfulness, like you're told something, your parents have to time it right. And then you kind of have to take those facts and kind of run with them. It takes a long time to kind of come to grips with it. And then you kind of have this like up and down of like acceptance / anger / depression. And I think with more time, it seems to get more, it kind of doesn't have as much ups and downs, I think. The longer you kind of deal with it, the less ups and downs there are, which can be really helpful if you're someone in adulthood and like yourself, you're still training, you're still finding other ways to be active, but you're just doing it in a responsible way. And I think that's something cool to be proud of. And I also think it's really awesome that you're pursuing, like, you know, what did you call it? Is it a specific term?
Yeah, so it's called ParaTriathlon. So parasport is
ParaTriathlon.
Yeah,
okay.
So it all sort of stems from the Paralympics, and it basically means it's in parallel to the mainstream kind of event. So you've got the Olympics, but then in parallel you've got the Paralympics, which is, you know, for people with, you know, disabilities, and so it's basically from that. That's the term they use. So,
and you're trying to pivot into that world.
Yeah, so I've done 2 years of ParaTriathlon so far, and
so you've competed in a few already.
I have, yeah. So I've done. Right. Yeah, I did a full season last season, so that was 5 races last year. We did 2 or 3 races the year before, and now this is coming into my second proper season. So it's really good. Yeah, I like it.
Is it fun?
Yes.
I know it's challenging. But
it's one of those strange things that the training for it is okay. That's the hardest part, obviously, dragging yourself into training and do it all. The actual event themselves, sometimes it can be great if it's going well, and sometimes it can be really hard work if you're having a bad day. But then once you're finished and you've done it, it's accomplished. It's such a great feeling, definitely. So it's that feeling that kind of gets you back in doing all the rest of it again and again.
Yeah. I think that's a good kind of a metaphor for just, you know, nothing worthwhile comes easy, right?
No.
You know, so like crossing the finish line, that feeling you have of accomplishment, and you're proud of yourself because you put in the hours, you trained when you didn't want to train, you know, you pushed your body when your body was saying, hey, let's sleep in today, you know?
Definitely.
But it all pays off when you do the race. And I think someone with people living with disabilities, I think, or anyone with or without a disability, that's like a tried and true way to success is you got to have discipline. You have to do things when you don't want to do them. You have to do things when they're uncomfortable. And I think sports kind of make that visible very easily, you know, where it's like, did you complete the race or did you not complete the race? And then also the next one, did you do a better time or did your time go backwards? and sports kind of makes that easy, where it's a lot harder for someone who works like an office job to kind of understand their growth and trajectory. But I think that's why I love sports, and I think that's why usually sports are used for like inspiration, because it's just kind of the perfect example. But I think that's awesome. So the difference between like a triathlon and a ParaTriathlon is like you have guides basically along the way. Is that how it works?
Yeah. So for the VI, so the visually impaired, which incorporates a scale. So there's certainly in parasport there is, for visually impaired, there's 5 categories, B1 to B5. B5 is sort of not to throw shade on them, but they're kind of visually impaired, but they're okay to sort of, you know, do a lot of stuff for themselves.
Okay.
B1 on the other end of the scale is completely blind. So if you're competing in the UK, for example, and I think around the world, B1, B2, B3 is a category that can compete in, you know, the Paralympics, for example, the World Championships.
Okay.
So I'm a B2. Most of the people I compete with in the UK are B2. So yeah, basically it just means that we have to race with a guide. It's the same guide. It's a male guide if you're a male, and a female if you're a female. And the guide has to be the same guide for the swim, the bike, and the run. So yeah, and obviously we ride on a tandem rather than a normal bike. So it's the same as triathlon, but it's just adapted to allow us to swim safely with someone else, bike safely on a bike with someone else, and then run attached to another human being. So yeah,
and I'm sure that's like, not only are you training to physically be able to have the endurance for these tasks, but then you also have to factor in you're now attached to somebody else, and that's going to change your movements. That's going to change a lot. So that's a whole new aspect to it. I imagine that makes it, you know, some people might probably, like, if they're ignorant about it, they're like, oh, it makes it easier. He has somebody to help him. But nah, I feel like swimming with attached to somebody sounds pretty difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's. I mean, the interesting thing is that I really enjoy competing with the guide, because for me personally, I like to have fun when I'm racing. So it's nice for me to have someone to kind of share in the pain and the joy of what we're doing. Certainly, anyone that thinks there's an unfair advantage to being tied to someone in the swim, they need to get in the water with someone else and try it out.
Yeah,
it's pretty brutal, because you're very close to another person that's also kicking and swinging their arms. So it can get quite brutal. You can get slapped on the back of the head or kicked or, you know, whatever. And their only job is obviously to get their head up and look and direct traffic and give certain cues when we're turning, etc. My job as the visually impaired swimmer is just to keep my head down and not bring my head up until we've got to the end.
Yeah.
I don't know where I'm at on the course. I don't know how long I've been swimming for, and I don't know where the end is. I just have to keep my head down and hope that the person I'm tied to knows exactly where they're going. And so it's a lot about trust, very much like being a visually impaired or blind person in a community it's all about trust. And, you know, that's hard to find with someone. You know, you're in the water, there's a very good chance that you could drown and die. You know, it's a lot of crazy thoughts go through your head when you're swimming tied to somebody else.
Yeah. No, it kind of goes back to, you know, again, sports being like the perfect metaphor. You know, you have to trust society, and then you have to trust your guide and that they're leading you in the right space, because without that trust, you might stop and panic and be like, where are we going? Where are we going?
Yeah.
But if you do that, you're not going to get to the next point. I find that really interesting. So on a different note, but on the same note, but different note, to train for these events, you know, I doubt every day you're going out and swimming, you know, with a guide. I doubt every day you're going out running with a guide. So how does someone like yourself, you know, stay active and in shape to be able to pull these events off?
So I'm lucky. I work as a a PT, personal trainer. I work as a triathlon coach, running coach, and a sports therapist. So I luckily am in contact with a lot of people that do the same sort of stuff that I do.
Yeah.
So I tend to look at my week and say, I need someone to come run with me on a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday who's about. And sometimes people will be free and sometimes they're not. So if I can get out and run, then I will do. If I can't, then we've got sort of a cross trainer at home that I can use. And so that's sort of
like a treadmill.
Yeah, it's sort of it's a cross between a cross trainer and a treadmill. It's called a zero gravity treadmill. So it's got a bit more range than a cross trainer has, but it hasn't got the treadmill belt that you can fall off and hurt yourself, because I have terrible balance and I don't like treadmills. So there's a lot of people with RP that you see all over treadmills in the gym doing, really cool stuff. The Tubiak Maniac is one of them. He's incredible. If you watch him run, it's a beautiful thing. However, I know that if I did that, I'd be on the floor. At some point, I'd be off.
Yeah. Mike, he's running marathons. Like, I remember one time what blew my mind is he ran like 2 marathons in one weekend or something like that.
Yeah.
Like did one day and one the next day. I'm like, sheesh.
He's an absolute beast. Honestly,
I would. I've run 3 miles and my legs are sore for a week, dude.
Yeah,
I just can't do it.
He's a specimen, as we say. He's got it, but he trains hard. If you watch it, if you watch his stuff, he trains really, really hard. He trains really well. Lots of burpees, lots of plyometrics, lots of jumping and, moving around and lifting weights. So, yeah, I try to get outside running as much as I can. With the bike, it's a little bit different. I have a guide called Ant. We will get out on the tandem when we can. But when I can't, I have an indoor bike at home. So I just use that.
Yeah.
And then swimming again. If I can get to the pool on my own, then I will just do what I can. If it's quiet, I'll just use a float and just kick my legs and do whatever. I prefer to be out in the open water, which in the UK tends to be from around April, May time because it's so cold. So that gives me a lot of freedom. So I like to do that, even though I don't always know where I'm going. I just feel like it's a bigger opportunity for me to just put my head down and swim. So I like to do that. And I also have an indoor swim trainer, which is basically an inflatable box that I lay on. And then I attach hand paddles that are like big bungee cords to a door handle. And I can just kind of pull against the resistance in my own house. So I've got a few options. Get to the gym. Me and Lauren go to the gym together a couple of times a week. So yeah, it's all good.
Okay. And who is Lauren?
My wife. Yes.
Okay. She works out too.
Yeah. So she's my sort of training partner. We don't race together anymore because, married couples shouldn't do triathlon together. They can love triathlon at the same time, but racing together is a whole different ball game. So yeah, we run together quite a lot. We don't do triathlon together. It's probably not a bad thing for marriage.
That's cool. So how long have you been with Lauren?
Oh, nearly 10 years. We were married in 2022. Oh, she's going to shoot me if I get that wrong. 2022.
I can cut that out.
No, I'm going 22. I'm going for it. If I message you because I've got it wrong, then we can edit that out and take it. But yeah, I'm pretty confident with that. Yeah, September 22. So
I was only asking because I always find it fascinating when you with relationships like that, because your partner sees the changes. Your partner sees, or your wife saw you go from, competing in these triathlons and now switching to train for the ParaTriathlons. And also along with that, they're witnessing your mental changes and how you're accepting RP over time. And they almost see different versions of you that I think is pretty unique to, progressive, disabilities and eye conditions is like, not many couples see that. I mean, people change and people have to adapt to that. I think no matter what, no disability or disability, you're going to have to accept that your wife or partner is going to grow and change over time, and you hopefully grow and change with them. But how has that process been, for your wife, seeing, you adapt and change to, vision loss?
So Lauren has always been really good. I was really open with her right from the start. So for me, and I know we see it on the RP pages a lot, there's a lot of stuff about I've got RP and I'm not sure I can get a girlfriend or find a partner or find someone that wants to be with me. That was never really my problem. My problem was just having someone that was able to just accept that was happening to me, and I wouldn't allow it to affect the relationship that I had with someone else. But obviously there's times when it's, I need someone to grab my arm, or I need an arm to hold on to. I can't be the person to be driving my wife around. I'm not the person to be able to lead my wife somewhere at night time. So there's the acceptance that I'm going to have those issues in the future, and as long as you're okay with that, then we're good. As long as you're happy always being the driver, whether I drink or I don't drink, then that's cool. And my outlook has always been that I never wanted my RP to define who I was. I wanted to do everything that I wanted to do with RP, not, what shame he couldn't do that because of, his problems. So I never wanted to allow my eyesight to affect my relationship with Lauren. And, we did a video about it on my channel, and it's one of those things I never really appreciated how much of a diamond she is for that. She knows that I can't see, and I make fun of the fact that I can't see, and I milk it and I take advantage of it as often as I can, and she knows it, and we just sort of laugh about it, and we bimble on through. She's always there to support me when I'm suffering, because as positive as I am, there's always speed bumps that hit you that you just weren't expecting. So for me, I think the worst thing that I've experienced recently is that I've now got floaters in my central vision, which I didn't have when I was growing up. So it was up until about 40, the progression of my RP was very stable. I was, you sort of get used to the tunnel vision and, a slow progression, and you kind of get comfortable with it. But then I woke up one day and was just like, oh, what is going on? There's all these flickering, pixelating things in my eyesight, and it really freaked me out. And I couldn't get an appointment with the ophthalmologist for about 6 months. So for 6 months, I was thinking, I don't know what the hell this is, and it's really unnerving. And she helped me through that. Once I'd been to the hospital, and they said it's just part of getting older with RP. It's it's one of them things, you just kind of accept it and move on. But RP throws curveballs at you, and so having someone that can just give you a little bit of slack when you're dealing with that is obviously very useful. And Lauren's always been really good at adapting to that, putting up with stuff when I'm having a down day or a bad eye day. She's fine with that, and we accept each other's limitations, and we're good. But yeah, she's one in a million for sure. But it does go to show that there are people out there that will, that will have a partner that's got a disability, and it won't affect them at all. As long as you're a nice person, a good person, like I think I am, I don't think a disability is necessarily a problem at all.
Yeah, beautifully said. Yeah, I think that, there's key traits, when, trying to find, long-term relationship success with someone with an eye condition. I think patience is a big one, and empathy, but not too much empathy. You don't want to be babied, that type of thing. And then just kind of acceptance of it, like understanding there's going to be good days and bad days. And you mentioned laughing about it, having fun. It's like, that's the goal. If you can get to a point where you're laughing, and you can make jokes and it doesn't feel painful to make a joke about yourself or hear a joke about yourself, I think that's when you're truly having fun and you're comfortable in your own skin. Because, life, with or without RP, you got to have fun. You got to remember to laugh. If you're not laughing, I feel bad for you,
Definitely.
You got to find ways to laugh,
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, having like a ride or die is a life changer. My wife is a life changer for me. It's like, and like you said, they're diamonds and they're one in a millions. But they're out there, and you'll know it when you meet them. And I think your attitude is another key component too. Is like, I'm not gonna let it get in between me and somebody.
No.
That's a huge key, because if you're like, down constantly and always in your head and self-conscious about this, self-conscious about that, you're not going to be present in the moment. And I think when dating, you need to be present. You need to be engaging with someone, having conversation. And also, women like confidence, so it's just the two kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah, I think the thing that scares, certainly from a male perspective, I think that a lot of females that are going out dating are looking for that sort of future. They're looking to know, men and women date differently. I think men are very much a sort of, they're trying to find someone to just be in the present moment with, whereas sometimes, females are kind of looking at another step ahead, and it's like, well, yeah, but if he can't drive, what happens if we have kids, and what happens about this, and blah, blah. And it's just like, whoa, hang on a minute. You kind of need to find that person that's happy to be in the moment with you, and just be like, you know what? Nah, It's all right. It's just who you are. Like,
yeah, you have to have someone who's comfortable with uncertainty.
Yeah.
Not really a type A type of person who's like, I need this figured out, and then at 3:00, 2 months from now, we're gonna do this, and then in 5 years from now, we're gonna blah 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 blah. So it's like, yeah, there has to be some wiggle room. There has to be some working with you and taking things as they come. But yeah, that and sometimes I say that's just on average, but sometimes relationships work and they're completely opposite of what we're describing. So who knows? I mean, you got to analyze yourself and analyze what you actually would work with and want. Because it's a two-way street. You don't have to just date anyone who's willing to date you. You have a say in who you want to date. So it's like,
absolutely.
If the vibe isn't right, don't be like, well, who else is going to date me? I'm just going to date this person. No, the vibe's not right. The vibe's not right.
Absolutely, man.
But it has to be said.
Yeah, no, that's it. Because I think it's that confidence in the, there's so many opportunities out there. No one wants to settle. Yeah. So it's genuine. When you find your person, when you find that person, it's genuine. It doesn't matter. Like, it wouldn't bother me what Lauren's going through, physically, mentally. Like, I know I'd be there for her no matter what.
Exactly.
And she's the same for me. And I think that's it. And finding that person is a long road sometimes, but they are out there, and
for
sure. It's all good.
And you mentioned that you and her made a video on your channel. I want to talk about your channel. I was interviewed for your channel, and I'm going to have a link to that interview in the show description if you want to hear the roles reversed and hear Rob interview me. But you do a lot more than interviews. You do a lot of like vlogging style videos, and you do a lot of covering facts about RP and how to adapt to RP, and just kind of helpful, a lot of very helpful videos and insights from someone living the true experience of it, which is what people with RP want. They go on YouTube. I want to learn something about RP, and it's helpful to find creators like yourself. And you have a great channel. I know you take it seriously, and it shows. You have great branding. You have very polished videos, content. If you're not following Rob, follow Rob. You do great social media content as well. I have linked to his Instagram and YouTube channel in the description. So make sure to go over there and check out his channel, because we didn't even cover your channel yet. We covered triathlons and relationships, but that's also another avenue you're exploring right now. Is I can tell you've kind of dived real deep into content creation. What has that journey been like?
It's been life-changing, to be fair. It's because when I first started it, I was very much trying to guess what an audience would be interested in. So you're right, there's a lot of different stuff out there. And when I was looking at things, I was thinking, well, actually, there's always a lot of questions about finding love and partners and et cetera, et cetera. So I thought, well, I'm married. Lauren's pretty cool. So I'll see if she's up for being in a video. And she hated the idea. She was like, absolutely not up for it at all. But because she's such a trooper, she's like, fine, I'll do it. And I just wanted to explore relationships and things. And, I'm no love expert. I'm no hitch. But I just know that bringing my attitude and my, the way I am to a relationship, it left me open to finding a relationship, finding love, and that was that. And what I wanted to always tell people on Facebook is it's not about the problems you have, it's about the person that shows up for the date. That's what's going to determine whether you find someone or not. It's really that simple, if you're confident, if you're funny, if you're just a nice person, caring person, whatever, it's not a problem. Now, I just wanted to get that message out. So I got Lauren to come along and sit down and do a little bit of talking about what it was like, dating me and what she was thinking about dating me. What are you thinking? And it was just really nice to just kind of hear it, because I've never really asked her those questions.
Yeah.
And it sort of sparks a lot of other questions. So I'd never considered having a son with RP. I never considered things about my eyesight for my parents and the guilt they felt about it and how they deal with me having my eyesight. And my dad was on there sort of saying that he thought I'd be a lot older when I lost my sight.
Mm-hmm.
And, those kind of insights, you never really take the time to consider how your disability, my disability, is affecting other people around you. So your friends, your family, what was it like for them growing up? My parents, my mum, I'm 43 in July. My mum, even now, if I say I'm going somewhere, I'm getting a train to London, I'm getting this. Are you going by yourself? Do you want me and Dad to come with you? Do you want, do you want this? Do you want, and when I was younger, it's like, whoa, like, leave me alone. Like, I'm independent. I can do this myself. Whereas now I realize it's because they're just worried. They care, they love me. They're worried because I've got a disability and I can't see.
Yeah.
It's normal. And I never really thought about stuff from other people's perspectives until I started doing my own videos and thinking about stuff a little bit deeper and digging into it. So yeah, it's been a real journey for me. I've really enjoyed it. And like I said, I'm moving into my second year now, and we've got some real cool things coming up that I'm really excited about. So yeah, it's been good.
Yeah. So get in early, everyone, before Rob blows up. But no, you make a great point. I think content creation, people sleep on the fact that it teaches you a lot about yourself. Because when else are you forced to kind of make scripts and speak publicly and express your thoughts, as well as ask people questions? Like, how often is it, like, without this podcast, we wouldn't be talking here right now, and I wouldn't be able to get your insights, or I wouldn't have all the insights of all my other guests, and I'm in the 120s now with episodes. So it's like, think about how much I've absorbed through my conversations, and then also the videos, like just the fact of like being like, I need to put out a video. What do I want to talk about? Now you're in a headspace to be like, what do I want to talk about? And sometimes it forces you to think about things that you wouldn't have thought about before, and analyze things in a different way, and like you said, you got to talk to your wife and hear questions or hear answers to questions you never thought you maybe would hear. Same with your parents. and it changes the way you look at it. So content creation, I think it keeps you sharp. I think it keeps you current. It's also a way to document your journey, because like it's a never ending journey. I think it's really neat for people to be able to jump in where you are now. And if they follow you over the years, they're kind of with you on this journey. And then, you know, they can either get in early where they're like, oh yeah, Rob's vision has lost more vision than me. So it's interesting to see what he can do. It gives me insight into what I will be able to do even when my vision deteriorates. And then, or if someone is ahead of you, it gives them a chance to reflect and be like, oh, I remember when my vision was at that level, you know, and then they're able to maybe comment and give you something, or, you know, that's kind of what my podcast is like all sorts of variations and versions of, you know, blindness. You know, blindness is a spectrum. So on that spectrum, there's all these different spots on that spectrum. So it's interesting to talk to people from all spots on that spectrum and then kind of pick and pull what you want to learn from them. And without content creation, I wouldn't have done that. And I think people underestimate the power of just like forcing yourself to think and conversate with people.
Definitely. And,
you know,
and it's something whereby you have to be authentic. And if you're authentic and passionate and consistently show up, I think it works. You know, it grows and it works. And that's what I like about it. It's, of course, everybody is waiting for that one viral video to wake up in the morning and go, oh my gosh, I've done it.
Yeah, still hasn't happened to me.
Right? That's what everyone thinks YouTube is about. And I think as much as I would love that, I also feel like I've learned a lot along this journey that I'm on currently. And, you know, I'm growing slowly and, you know, the views are growing and the traction is coming. But it means that I just need to keep pivoting until I find that thing that I can give people that resonates with them. And you know, that's what I'm looking for. I'm always looking for, is there something else that I can do which can help more people? And that's where I'm at, you know, and I really like that. It's testing me. It's forcing me to really learn stuff about myself and really get involved in my own journey and interact with my community of people and, you know, disability in general and just the wide world in general, you know, teaching other people about accessibility and about, you know, how they say things and how what they say can affect people and all of these things, you know, equal opportunities. And yeah, it's massive and I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, to kind of tie our whole conversation together, it's like your training for triathlons requires discipline. And you may try a new training technique and you realize, oh, that's going to help me be better at swimming. And then you start to implement that and then you get results, you know. And then the same with content creation, it's kind of the same way. It's like, oh, I learned this new editing technique, or I tried this different kind of formula for a video, or I made a shorter video, I tightened everything up, or I did an interview about this topic and people seem to like that topic more than hearing about other topics. So it all kind of just through discipline, you learn about yourself. In the same way with training for sports, through discipline, you learn about yourself and you learn about your capabilities. And it's kind of what makes it addicting, you know, because there's plenty of times with content creation where you're, just like you described with training, you just don't feel like doing it. But you know, it's like a muscle you have to train. Like creativity is kind of the same way. You know, long story short, you can learn a lot from being disciplined and just being diligent and starting a hobby and committing to it and doing something to completion, you know.
Definitely.
And you'll learn a lot about yourself along the way. I think it's surprising. So if you're someone out there looking for some sort of spark in your life, you know, try to find a new hobby. Maybe run a triathlon.
Get in touch.
Start a channel. Start a YouTube channel. Just find something, I think, to kind of have discipline with, and I think it'll be beneficial for you.
Definitely. Whereas I try and say to all my athletes, it's great to pin everything on one thing and you know, one competition, one race, and throw everything at it and try to do your best and get a personal best or to win or to whatever. But actually, the beauty of the journey and falling in love with the process is more important sometimes. And that's what I'm finding with YouTube. It's I know at some point this channel is going to blow up. It's not happened yet, but I'm absolutely loving the process. And for me, that's the most important thing at the moment. If I'm loving what I'm doing, then I'm going to keep doing it.
Right on, right on. Perfectly said. I say we end on that. How about that?
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's a good time to wrap.
Yeah. So like I said, I have links to Rob's YouTube channel and social media in the episode description, but maybe just tell them where they can find you in case they want to find you on their own.
Yeah, so I've just rebranded my business as Rob Sears Official. So that's what I'm under on Instagram and Facebook. And then on YouTube, my channel is called Blind Focus with Rob Sears. And yeah, it's got it all there. Triathlon stuff, sports stuff, RP information, living with RP, the things that people say to me on trains and in public, and, you know, offensive things that people say and do. And yeah, just go and check it out and see what you make of it.
Yeah. Highly recommend subscribing to Rob's channel. It's very well rounded, tons of info on there, and it's well done. And you get to hear Rob's cool accent and see his cool haircut.
Hey, thank you. I will definitely come back here if I get compliments like that.
But with that said, man, I think that wraps our conversation up, man. And I appreciate your time, and thanks for coming on the See Through podcast.
Thanks, Lance. Take care, mate.